Hi guys, so it's that time of year again. I'm here to share with you my top 10 books of 2015. Last year I think I did like my top 14, the year before that the top 13, etc. But I've decided to stop that because it's just going to get harder and harder. Not so much to choose books because I could easily have picked 15 books. I loved loads of books this year. But I don't want it to diminish eventually the books that you choose. So what you're going to do, like the top 20 books of 2020, like I don't want to have to choose books. I would rather have to struggle and whittle it down to 10. I would rather agonize over my decision to finally maybe reject books as the top 10 than maybe have to pick books that didn't deserve it. I could have chosen 15 books this year, but I want to stop that. I don't want it to just roll on to keep being, top 16 books of 2016. I'm just going to do a top 10 every year and be done with it. So I did agonise over my decisions. There were some books that instantly made the top 10. I didn't even have to think about it, and I didn't have to sort of take them off the list, put them back on the list. They were on the list, and they stayed on it. Others I had to go back and forth, but this is most definitely my top 10 books of 2015. I start off with Vision in Silver by Anne Bishop. I absolutely love this series. This is book 3 in the Others series. If you followed my channel for a while, you'll know I'm obsessed with this series. It's a bit of a strange one when you try and describe it to people about this girl who cuts herself to see visions, and she ends up living in sort of this gated community with a load of shapeshifters. When you try to explain it to someone, they look at you like you're weird, but you have to read it to really understand why it's so amazing. And it doesn't get enough attention on BookTube, I feel. It's an absolutely amazing series, and I cannot wait for 2016 for book 4. It's one of my most anticipated releases next year, and it comes out in March, and it's called Marked in Flesh, and I can't wait. This was an amazing book in the series. I'm always excited when they arrive and devastated when I finish them straight away, but I love this so much. Next book that was a favourite of mine is Hero by Samantha Young. This was a surprise to me. I didn't expect to like this as much as I did. This is a standalone novel by her, and I had read a couple of books in her On Dublin Street series, but they were sent to me for review, and I had read them out of order, and I hadn't enjoyed them very much. I later went back and reread sort of the earlier books and loved them, and I've completely changed my mind on that series. But because of that, I wasn't expecting to like this, because I thought it was going to be like her other books and I wasn't going to like it. And it completely threw me for a loop because I absolutely fell in love with it. It's a contemporary romance. It's sort of a typical old school Mills and Boon romance in the sense that he's a powerful businessman, sort of this poorer, sort of, I don't want to say dorky girl, but sort of klutzy, clumsy girl, and they're sort of enemies, but they end up falling in love with each other. The guy says he can't really be with her, but it sounds really cheesy and it sounds really typical, but something about it really grabbed my attention and I absolutely fell in love with it, and I just highly recommend it. As a romance for this year, I think it was probably my favourite. I absolutely loved it. Highly recommend it if you haven't already. Or if you haven't checked out Samantha Young's On Dublin Street series because you don't think maybe they're your thing or whatever, you should definitely check them out. But maybe start with Hero, as it is a standalone. Next book, that's my favourite, was again a very easy choice, and it's a little bit different, and it's Hyperbole and a Half by Ali Brosh. This book had been on my shelf for a couple of years and I hadn't picked it up, and I finally decided to, and I can't believe it took me so long to read this book. It is without a doubt one of the most, if not the most, hilarious book I have ever read in my entire life. It was absolutely amazing. It started out as a blog, and it's characters drawn on paint, and she makes like a little comic strip out of this character, and you find yourself relating to this character so much. It is genuinely so funny. The little derp face is just too much. She's also bringing out another book next year, Really excited for it. But this is just so funny. This is a book I recommend to absolutely everybody. It is so funny. It had me crying with laughter. At some points I actually had to stop reading it because I was hurting from laughing. It was absolutely fantastic. You must read this one, guys. Another one that you have to read is Me Before You by Jojo Moyes. I read this in November and it became my favourite book. I really struggle with saying what my favourite book is because I always feel like I'm dishonouring other books. It's like when people ask you what your favourite Disney movie is. I go back and forth between 2 Disney movies. It's a bit like that, but this, I would say, is what to adult books, I can't speak today, I'm so sorry. Let's try that again. This to me, for my adult books, is like The Fault in Our Stars for my young adult books. Like The Fault in Our Stars is my favourite young adult book, and I think this has to be my favourite adult book. It's just so good. I agree with people when they say that you shouldn't say, oh, if you liked this, read this, or, you know, when you get a sticker on a book, whatever. But I think if you did enjoy The Fault in Our Stars, this might be a good adult book for you. It's just so good, but it's so funny. Like, when I was telling my mum about what this was about, like a youngish man that's sort of been in an accident and he's paralysed, he can't move. And it's about this girl that basically goes to look after him. And I was saying how humorous it was and how funny. She was like, how on earth are you finding that funny? I'm like, the writing and the character of Luke Clark is just phenomenal, and the story is fantastic. It's definitely one that you have to read and experience for yourself, because I knew very little going into it and I enjoyed not knowing much, but it was absolutely amazing. And the movie of this is coming out next year, which I look forward to with equal parts trepidation and equal parts excitement. But definitely one for you guys to check out if you haven't already. It's phenomenal. And if you don't check out any of the other books on my list this year, check out this one. Another book that took me by surprise was A Pound of Flesh by Sophie Jackson. When I got this, I thought this was very much going to be like an erotic story. The title and the cover definitely gives you that impression, and there is most definitely sexy times in here. Most definitely. But the story is so much more than that. It's very deep, very well constructed. It's about a prisoner called Wes Carter and about a teacher called, what's her name? Oh, goodness me. I can't think of her name. It's Cat something. But basically, she teaches in this prison, and they sort of they start a relationship, but it's not cheesy. It's not sort of insta love. It's just extremely well done. I can't think of how else to describe it to you guys. Like, the sex in this book is not the whole story, if you know what I mean. And there's build up to that. It's not one of those books where characters are instantly in love. They're instantly going at it. It's just, it has that beautiful build up, and it just works, and it's believable because they've worked at it, if you know what I mean. I haven't heard a lot about this book on BookTube, but it's definitely one to read if you like romance. But if you like your romance, it's done really well. Highly recommend this one, guys. I have yet to check out the sort of sequel novella, and plus there is going to be another book in this series about different characters that feature in this book. So yeah, this was a really great surprise, and I absolutely loved it. I know the month that I read it, I was obsessed with it. It was fantastic. Then another book is Burned by Ellen Hawkins. I finally picked up an Ellen Hawkins book this year. I wanted to read her books for a really, really long time, and then I buddy read this one with Rob from Rob's Reading Roundup, and I absolutely love this. This book hits you in all of the feels. I loved this because it's not the first book that I've read in verse, but it is sort of the best book that I've read in verse. I've read a Jason Myers book and I didn't enjoy it at all, but this was absolutely fantastic. I thought that it being in verse would detract from the story, would make it hard to follow, but it absolutely didn't. It was fantastic. It's a very emotional book, and it's about this young girl. She comes from a very religious yet kind of abusive family, and she ends up spending the summer with her aunt, who's much more understanding, much more free, and she ends up meeting this boy and falling in love, but she doesn't maybe get her happily ever after as you want her to. And it's this book, when I finished it, was on my mind for days, and I really wanted things to pan out differently, and it was just, it's a fantastic book. You have to read it, guys. And there is a sequel to it called Smoke, which I haven't read yet, because I still don't think, even after all this time, that I'm ready to go back. But it was fantastic, and it made me want to read all of Ellen Hawkins' books. Truly amazing. Then kind of a series that I'm going to count as one book, because I couldn't pick between them. I read it on my Kindle, so I don't have the physical copies to show you, but it's the Hades Hangman series by Tilly Cole. If you've been following my channel, you probably guessed that I was going to mention this. I read the first 3 books, that's all that's currently out this year, and I'm obsessed. I absolutely love them. It's about a motorcycle club called the Hades Hangman, and each book follows a different member of the Hades Hangman as they kind of maybe fall in love, and it's phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. The first book is called It Ain't Me Babe, and it's about the motorcycle club's leader, and basically this girl escapes from a cult. She's lived a really messed up life, she's really quite damaged, and when she gets there she's quite badly injured, and they sort of nurse her back to health. It's fantastic. And then the second book follows her sister, and then the third book follows her sister. I'm really excited for the 4th book to see where that's going to go. Highly recommend, guys. Absolutely 100% love it. I read books 1 and 2 straight after each other, and then I had to wait agonisingly for the 3rd book. I've since recommended them to my boss at work, and she's read them. She came in one day after the weekend and she said, oh my god, I've read the first 2 books already. She is as obsessed as I am. Definitely one to check out. Then another series that I'm going to count as one, because you can't really choose between them, and it's a Regency series. I love my Regency romance, and this is a new to me author, and it's Karen Hawkins, and it's her Oxenberg Princes series, The Prince Who Loved Me and The Prince and I. I love these covers. They are fairy tale retellings set in the Regency type period, and I am all about that. The Prince Who Loved Me is a Cinderella type story, and The Prince and I is a retelling of Robin Hood, and they're just really fun Regency books that you fall in love with the characters. They make you smile, and they're just worth the read if you like your historical romances. A lot of people will find them cheesy, but sometimes you need that, and these books were some light relief that I absolutely fell in love with the characters. Yeah, highly recommend that for my Regency fans. Queen of Shadows. 4th book in the Sarah J Maas Throne of Glass series. I love this series. It's rare that I read a sequel as soon as it comes out. I am trying to do that more, to actually read sequels instead of letting them linger on my shelves for years. But yeah, love this series, guys. I don't want to say too much about it. This is the 4th book in the series. But if you haven't checked out the Throne of Glass books, I know they get a lot of hype, but I really, really, really love them. So yeah, looking forward to the next book in that series. I also read Court of Thorns and Roses this year. Really, really enjoyed it. Didn't enjoy it as much as the Throne of Glass books. Just saying. And then my final book to make it on my top 10 is Sweet Soul by Tilly Cole. Tilly Cole was a new discovered author for me in 2015. Absolutely love her. Want to read all of her books. I have Sweet Soul is the 4th book in her Sweet Home series, and it's the best that I've read. I've read book 1 and 1.5, and I've now read book 2, and then I've read book 4, and I'm going to go back and read book 3. But it was absolutely mind-blowing. Absolutely mind-blowing. The characters were different to anything else that I've seen in like a new adult novel. I feel like they were so just endearing. I rooted for them from like the first page. They're just characters I've not seen before, and I liked that they weren't complete opposites. They had similarities. Like, I read a lot of books where the characters are complete opposites, you know, like a jock and a geek. You know, that's simplifying it a little bit, but you know what I mean. They're complete opposites. I love that these guys had their similarities, their backstories were similar, and they bonded over that, and everything about that book just worked. Loved it so much. I think you could probably read it without reading the other books, but I would recommend maybe reading the other books. I actually didn't enjoy Sweet Home, which is the first book, as much as Tilly Cole's other books that I've read. But I think maybe they got better, because I've read Sweet Fall since and loved that. So I think maybe Sweet Home just wasn't as good when I compare it to her other books, but it's still a really good book. Still recommend, but Sweet Soul was fantastic. And if you followed my Vlogmas videos, I was talking about it in my Vlogmas videos, because that's when I was reading it, and it took over my life a little bit. I became a little bit obsessed. It was absolutely fantastic. So that's my top 10 books, guys, of 2015. If I've added any of these books to your to be read, let me know in the comments down below. If any of these books made it onto your top 10 books of 2015, also let me know in the comments down below, because I love talking to you guys in the comments. So yeah, thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in 2016.